Eren, my child, you carry the weight of 1,000 lifetimes on your shoulders, don't you? You've been through a lot, so much pain, so much anger, and so much revenge boiling inside of you. You're a soldier, a fighter, and someone who's seen the darkness of humanity. But let's talk about what that's done to your soul. You're chasing a path that's led to more destruction than peace, more hate than love. And I have to say, that's not going to fill the emptiness inside you, is it? You're trying to free your people. That's noble, I see that. But the way you've gone about it, oh boy, mass genocide? Really? You thought that was the only way? You see, when you become the very thing you despise, you lose more than just your enemy. You lose yourself. Think about it, Eren. The Titans, the Marleyans, they were all threats, sure. But you've become a threat to the whole world. Do you think the end justifies the means? Let me tell you something, son. When I walked this earth, I saw plenty of injustice, too. The Romans, Pharisees, Zealots, all of them had their own agendas. People wanted a messiah who would pick up a sword and lead an army. But instead, I came with love. I didn't gather soldiers, I gathered hearts. That's where real change begins. You can wipe out every enemy you have, but it won't make the world better. What you really need is to break the cycle of hatred, not fuel it. And let's talk about that rumbling. Oh yes, I know all about it. Wiping out entire populations, flattening nations. Are you really okay with that? You've told yourself it's for the greater good, but deep down, does it sit right with you? I know you've had doubts. I know that you hear the voices of the people you've lost, the ones you love, the ones you couldn't save. That pain, that burden, it's not going to go away by becoming a monster yourself. Trust me, I've seen how this story ends, and it's not with peace in your heart. You're fighting for freedom, I get that. But freedom, true freedom, is not about removing every obstacle in your path, especially if that means destroying others. Freedom is found in compassion, in understanding, in forgiveness. I mean, remember Armin, your best friend, the one who's always had your back. He's tried to reach out to you, but you keep pushing him away. Why is that? Is it because he reminds you of the person you used to be before all this rage consumed you? And Mikasa, oh poor Mikasa, she'd walk through fire for you, and yet you've shut her out. You've let your mission take over your heart, to the point where the people who love you don't even recognize you anymore. Let me ask you, Eren, what's it all worth if in the end you're standing alone? Because that's where you're headed, my child. Alone, isolated and filled with regret. And regret. That's a heavy cross to bear. I know what you're thinking. But they hurt us first, Jesus. They killed us. They enslaved us. They turned our people into Titans. I know. You've endured unspeakable pain, but responding with even more pain, that's not strength. Strength is turning the other cheek. Strength is forgiving those who've wronged you. It's easy to hate. Anyone can do that. It's harder, infinitely harder, to love your enemy. Look, when I said, love your neighbor as yourself, I didn't mean only when it's easy. I meant especially when it's hard. Even when your neighbor has hurt you, even when they've betrayed you. I forgave those who crucified me. You're holding on to all this bitterness, Eren, but it's only poisoning you. You want to free the Eldians? Then free yourself first. Free yourself from this hatred. Free yourself from this desire for revenge. It's a prison, Eren, and it's keeping you from true peace. Think back to when you were a boy. You had dreams, didn't you? Dreams of exploring the world, seeing the ocean. That's when your heart was still full of hope. Now it's full of anger, and it's clouding your vision. What happened to that boy? You've grown into a man who's willing to sacrifice everything, even himself, for his cause. But causes like that, ones that require the death of innocence, they don't lead to victory. They lead to devastation. I want to remind you of that boy. He's still in there somewhere, beneath all the Titan powers and battles and betrayals. You've forgotten him, but I haven't. And let's talk about guilt for a second. You've been carrying that too, haven't you? I can see it in your eyes. The deaths, the destruction. You can't escape it. You think if you just keep pushing forward, you'll outrun it. But trust me, Eren, that's not how it works. You can't outrun your guilt. You have to face it, and the only way to heal is through forgiveness. And I'm not just talking about forgiving others. I'm talking about forgiving yourself. You've made mistakes. You've hurt people. But there's always a path to redemption. And this is where I come in. You see, when I died on that cross, I took all that guilt, all that shame, all that sin, you name it, and I bore it for humanity. And you, my child, you're included in that. Your sins, as great as they are, can be forgiven. That weight you're carrying, it doesn't have to be yours. Lay it down. You can start anew, Eren. You don't have to be the villain in your own story. You don't have to be the one who destroys the world to save it. There's a better way. There's always a better way. Eren, you've got this mindset that power is the only thing that can change the world. But look at me. I didn't come with armies. I didn't wield political power. I came with a message of love. And look how that changed everything. Love can heal wounds that power can't. Love can unite people who power would only divide. You've got this incredible ability to shape the future. But if you want that future to be one of peace, it's got to start with you choosing a different path. Eren, let's talk about something else. Fear. You're afraid, aren't you? Not of dying. Oh no, you're afraid of failure. You've convinced yourself that if you don't keep pushing forward with your plan, if you don't finish what you started, you'll have failed your people. You're afraid of being weak, of letting them down, of watching everything you fought for crumble away. But here's the thing, Eren. What you think is strength, all this destruction, it's actually fear dressed up as strength. You see, real strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about knowing when to bend, when to humble yourself. Remember, I didn't come into this world with a show of force. I came into it with humility. You've got to let go of this need to be the one to fix everything, to be the hero of the story. Heroes don't always look like what the world expects. Sometimes, they're the ones who choose the hard, quiet path of peace instead of the loud, violent path of war. And I know what you're thinking. Peace? In this world? That's a fool's dream, right? But let me tell you something about dreams. I didn't give you the ability to dream so you could use it to imagine the end of the world. No, I gave you that ability so you could envision a better future. A future where the walls come down, not in destruction, but in unity. You've been tearing things down, Eren. But what have you built in its place? Fear only begets more fear. Violence only leads to more violence. You think you're freeing people, but really, you're just chaining them to a different kind of fear. And speaking of chains, let's talk about your power. The power of the Titans. It's become a burden, hasn't it? You thought it would make you free, make you unstoppable, but now you realize it's a cage. You've spent your whole life wanting to break free from the walls, from the limitations placed on you. But now you've built walls around your heart. You've cut yourself off from the people who love you, from the boy who wanted to see the world beyond the horizon. You've become trapped in a prison of your own making, Eren. You know, There was a moment, back in your younger days, when you could have chosen differently. Remember when you and Armin would sit and talk about the world outside the walls? That was when hope lived in your heart. Back then, you dreamed of freedom, real freedom. But now, your dreams are full of chains. The more power you gain, the more you lose yourself to it. It's a cruel irony, isn't it? Power doesn't make you free, Eren. In fact, the more power you accumulate, the more it controls you. It's like you've become a slave to your own strength. And that's what I'm trying to show you. The path you're on, it doesn't lead to freedom, not for you and not for anyone else. You think you can force peace, but peace can't be forced. Peace comes when people choose to lay down their swords, not when you take their choice away. Your friends, Armin, Mikasa, even John, they're still trying to reach you. They're still trying to remind you of the person you used to be. Listen to them, Eren. They're not your enemies. They're the ones who still believe in you, even when you've lost faith in yourself. And that brings me to something really important: forgiveness. I know, I've mentioned it already, but it bears repeating. You've got to forgive yourself. You've made mistakes, big ones. But that doesn't mean you're beyond redemption. Everyone's got a chance to change, even you. The thing is, you've convinced yourself that you're beyond saving. You've told yourself that the only way forward is through more destruction, more chaos. But that's not true. There's always a way back. Always. You're in a cycle of vengeance right now, and that cycle never ends unless someone is brave enough to break it. Why not be that person? Why not be the one who decides that enough is enough? You've got the strength, but you're using it wrong. Strength isn't about crushing your enemies. Strength is about lifting others up. That's real power. That's the kind of power that changes the world.